Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Build the Brain, Then the Agents, How B2B Marketing Leaders Turn AI into Real Pipeline, produced by Marketing Profs and sponsored by Interrupt Agents and Glean. I'm Bree Krantz. I'm going to be your moderator for today's event. And with that, I have just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. If at any point you have any audio or visual issues, just try to refresh your page. And if that doesn't work, log out and then back in. If you're on Wi-Fi or you have multiple apps open, no shade, but it could impact your experience. So when in doubt, close it out. Check out the right-hand side panel for some fun engagement options. We have the chat feature over there where you can connect with your fellow marketers. You can reply and send reactions to comments by just hovering over them first. Please use the Q&A tab specifically to submit questions for our speakers today. In there, you can also upvote your favorite questions. And then as soon as the presentation's done, we're going to start with the highest voted questions first, and then our speakers will follow up for any we don't get to. There is a PDF of the deck available to download in the Resources tab. And yes, you will get the recording once it's ready. We'll send you a notice when that's available. And finally, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see an emoji button. Feel free to use that right now and throughout the presentation to share your reactions. Perfect. You guys are on it. I'd like to take a minute to thank Interrupt Agents and Glean for sponsoring today's webinar. Interrupt Agents is an AI native growth infrastructure company for B2B marketing, sales, and revenue teams. They help organizations move beyond AI experiments into a durable operating model built around a single GTM brain and production-ready agents that do real work. Glean is an enterprise work AI platform that turns company knowledge into faster decisions and better execution. By connecting information across the tools teams already use, Glean gives employees one secure place to search, create, and automate work. Now, please join me in welcoming Ben Lack and Wei Sa-Kang, who are presenting Build the Brain, Then the Agents, How B2B Marketing Leaders Turn AI into Real Pipeline. Ben is CEO of Interrupt Agents, and a B2B marketing and revenue leader who helps growth teams design full funnel programs that actually ship, using AI and agents to drive leads, pipeline, and repeatable revenue wins. Wei-Sa is Senior Marketing Operations Manager at Glean, focused on building scalable GTM operations through process systems and data, with a passion for using AI and automation to help teams move faster and drive more pipeline. With that, I'm going to hand it over to you two to take it away.
Thank you so much, Bree. Quick agenda for what we'll cover today. Just wanted to do a little more context setting, which is a theme that will come up a couple times during this presentation. Then we'll go into what we're calling the agent development lifecycle. We'll talk about what that means, showcase a couple of end-to-end workflows ideas for marketing, showcase how some of that works IRL, give you a 90-day roadmap, and then some potential outcomes of that process. So let's just set the stage and the context here really quick into what we're actually seeing in the field and what you guys are all probably looking at today. Our buyers expect personalized messaging across every channel. Leadership expects us to move faster, do more with less. At the same time, we're having conversations with our sales team looking to marketing for more pipeline, enablement, awareness, and all of these teams are being asked to build stronger skills around data and AI. And so the challenge is not just, volume of requests or volume of pipeline, it's the expectations that are rising from every direction all at once. We're being asked to, deliver one-to-one relevancy, prove efficiency, adopt AI in a way that actually fits how our go-to-market teams actually work. So one thing that we'll focus on in this session is that, us as marketers don't need more generic AI to achieve these goals. We need AI that's grounded in your company's actual go-to-market company reality and context. So that leads me directly into my next point. If AI is going to help our marketing teams in a real way, it has to understand that underlying context. Simple tasks maybe only need a little bit of context, things that can fit into a context window, something that you upload. But as you get more advanced in your marketing work, the knowledge and the organizational skills, people, process, task states, research, tools, and company and industry context needed is going to increase. So, something that requires a little bit more complex search, if you're looking at agentic tasks or even end to end agentic workflows, require a ton of context in order to execute in a way that you want it to. So it's not just a simple lookup for us. It's building plans, aligning teams, drafting content, all of that, making decisions, and pulling in all of those realities. So when we talk about AI for marketing, the real question is not does it generate the right text? The real question is does it have the right context to produce something useful, accurate, and aligned with how your business actually operates? And we all know marketing is anything but one size fits all. We have a ton of specializations that come in to form one marketing team. And depending on the size of your organization, there could be a whole sub teams, a single person for each sub team, or maybe this is all one person. And we all of these different sub functions dramatically differ on their outputs, their metrics, what they care about, and the tools that we use on a day-to-day basis. But as we all know, we all also need to work together on cross functional or integrated campaigns. So it's super important for everybody to be working across the same baseline of information and context. For example, I'm as a marketing operations professional, I spend a lot of my day in our sales and marketing systems like Salesforce, maybe spreadsheets, maybe our data warehouse. My colleagues on our design team, will live in Figma. Our product marketing team is bouncing between, Google Docs and Google Meets and Gong and slides and so on. And so we're all, at some points collaborating on a single integrated campaign or collaborating on messaging one message about our company to the market. And so at the end of the day, all of our pieces need to come together and need to be built on one central set of knowledge. And while there are so many, excellent AI tools out there that maybe are embedded in the products that you already use, that solves one piece of the puzzle. But we found, doing task-based AI, making individual tasks a little bit more efficient, there's definitely a ceiling of, the ROI that you can achieve there. And so that brings me to where Glean comes in. I work for Glean. Glean is an AI coworker that brings together cross-domain expertise to every single employee in the company. We use our platform to analyze and synthesize structured and unstructured data across every platform in a sharp, coherent narrative. But it does more than just create a draft of content or generate a point of view. It actually helps execute real work. And what I mean by real work is, not just that it helps me find and generate outputs, but it can also take actions for me to get the outputs into the right place. Anything from sending an email to analyzing schedules and sending out a meeting invite, or even performing some data analysis and generate kind of polished analyses on things that I can actually take into leadership meetings. So we use two pieces of information there, our enterprise and our personal graphs. Through that, Glean understands how I work, how my company works, what matters to each person and each employee, how we're all connected. And so Glean is something I'm able to delegate work to and trust that it is carried out the way that it should be. Um, for most of us that use some sort of LLM chat interface, and maybe things that you've experimented with, maybe you've used it as a thought partner, or you've used it to run through some iterations of things. And I do the same with Glean. I start a portion of my Glean of my work in Glean chat, which helps me identify maybe where certain information lives, what exists, who I should be collaborating with. And then another portion of my work, I start with Glean agents, which are workflows that we've built within Glean that are either initiated by me, or they're triggered based on certain conditions that I've set that actually will help me do work on a regular basis. These are things like my weekly update for my manager, or helping me actually track campaign performance as our quarter progresses. And last thing is, I want my AI coworker in this case to be model agnostic, so I can take advantage of the unique capabilities of each type of model that's out there. For a team like marketing, we're very specialized. We want to make sure that we're leveraging the best model for the best task at hand. So you want to be able to trust that you have the right guardrails in place and you're not slowed down because you're worried about governance or anything like that. Yeah, so I'd love to, now that you have a little bit of context, pass it to Ben to walk us through a framework of how you should think about building that foundation and building agents in practice.
Thanks, Wesa. Nice job. And hello to everyone. And thank you so much for being with us today. I want to kind of pick up from here and turn the concepts that Wesa shared into something that's practical and actionable. So we've talked about the brain, or the context layer, and why that matters. The concept that I want to explore with you is how you can actually build on top of that context in a way that creates meaningful leads, pipeline, and revenue impact, instead of just a bunch of experiments that aren't going to go anywhere. So here's kind of how I think about this. If the brain or the context is the foundation, then the workflows that you're already executing on manually today, but could actually potentially be automating, is really where the value is going to live. And so agents that you want to build are going to be how you operationalize these workflows. So what I want to do in my presentation is show you how, what kind of process we use, and walk you through an example in detail. I'll do a little bit of a demo, and then I'll share a 90-day roadmap of just some recommendations, as well as some potential outcomes that you could realistically drive from all of this, so that you could put this into action on your own or with our help. Now, one of the biggest frustrations that I and my team see with marketers and marketing teams who are getting into agent building is that they're generating a bunch of excitement after the build out of an agent. But then after like a week or two later, the thing's pretty dead. And that's not because the model that they were using was bad. It was actually because nothing around it was really designed to last. Somebody, maybe taking the credit for building out the MVP, but if we're being honest, there isn't really a real owner. It's missing context that would have made that output, super, super useful. It's missing resiliency. So the moment something needs to change or the inputs get messy, it breaks and falls apart. And usually nobody has built the feedback loop to improve it, or has really thought about the kinds of budget that needs to be set aside in order to make sure that the thing's not running wild. So the takeaway here is that the operating model that you put behind your work is really critical. And if you want agents to scale in marketing, then you have to design for ownership, for context, reliability, and measurement, while also maintaining any of the budgets that you've been able to get approved for this. Now, this is the ADLC, which is a 7-step agent development lifecycle that was developed by Glean. And it's a practical framework for planning, designing, building, launching, and improving agents for revenue and growth teams, but for really any other department within a business. And you can see the whole list here. I'm not going to go through every single one. I do want to call out a couple of these, though. Step 2 is the design. Defining the workflow, the fit, the users, the inputs, the outputs, and the human review. That's super important. And if you find that as you're going through this design step, that what you want to design is overly complex, then we would recommend that you consider drafting a PRD, or a product requirement document. And this will help you stay organized as you work through your requirements. If what you want to build is on the simpler side, then just starting with prompts or some type of outcome specific focus is going to be totally fine as well. Another call out of these steps that I want to speak to just for a second is step 5, which is develop. And this is important because you build only after the workflow and the metrics and all the content and context and checkpoints are super clear. And again, to be clear, develop is not step 1, it's step 5, because you really want to be organized and have all of your ducks in a row before you actually go build something. Because then once you get to step 7, you really want to be able to make sure you're setting aside the time to be monitoring and improving what you've built, tracking the usage, the failures, the feedback from people who are using it, and really the business impact over time. What we see when we're building agents for ourselves and for clients is that it is an iterative process. And if we're not creating the space to be able to monitor and improve, then we're not giving the agent really the opportunity to be able to extract as much value as we're hoping over time. So that's the operating model. And now let me show you what's possible if you actually apply this to different types of marketing workflows that I'm sure that many of you are doing in your normal day. So there's a lot of end-to-end workflows that you can build in marketing. And I want to show kind of just with this slide, the art of the possible without turning this into some type of disconnected list. But as you can see on this slide, these different functions are just a sample of end-to-end workflow opportunities that you can actually take advantage of in marketing. And this is just scratching the surface, but definitely a place to start if you're looking to get going on something. And so what I'd like to do next is just walk you through how we've built the product marketing launch workflow using Glean, because it is one of the cleanest ways to show how the context that Wesley was speaking about, the workflow design that I've just presented, and agents can come together in one coherent story. So this is kind of like a hypothetical, but I'm sure that some variation of this applies to many of you in your businesses. So I'm just going to kind of read this through real quick so we all can kind of align on the same thing. So let's just say, for example, that our PMM just got off a call with the PM about an upcoming feature and needs to develop some messaging. Traditionally, that'd probably take a number of days or weeks to be able to cobble all of that together. But in this workflow, the PMM has Glean analyze all the recent calls and documentation that's available to it through the context. Customers have been asking for this. And so Glean is able to pull together a brief that the PMM can use for the campaign. It saves product marketing a ton of time and headache. So now that the messaging grid's in a good place, it's now time to schedule the kickoff call so that everybody in marketing can now get the alignment. Makes sense. So Glean can actually identify the list of marketing stakeholders and then analyze everybody's calendar, because it's connected to everybody's calendar, to identify an appropriate meeting time. And then Glean can even draft the agenda and send the meeting invite. So instead of having to have somebody on the team do all of this, which I'm sure somebody's fine to do, it'd be much faster and easier to just have something do this for us. Now that marketing is all in alignment, we want other departments and other stakeholders to get the insights into what's going to go on with this launch. So let's just say that the demand gen team has taken Glean notes and has Glean build an internal comms document for sales and leadership alignment. Now sales and leadership knows what's going on. They've been able to ask their questions. They've been able to get their guidance. We're all in a good place. And that's all probably happening while marketing, all of us, are creating all the content that needs to be generated for all the different commitments that we're making to our campaign, whether it's omni-channel or multi-funnel, whatever it may be. So that's going to take some time to do, and I'm sure that many of you are already using AI in some way to create all that. So that's great that you're starting to figure that out. But let's say you're now finally at launch day. All right, let's go. That's a stressful but also exciting day. The moment that launch happens, everyone starts wanting to know, as I'm sure you can relate, how's this launch doing? And so now, you're starting to collect data from all your systems on the different components of your campaign and, what's working, what's not, what can be optimized in real time, so on and so forth. That takes a ton of work, as I'm sure you can agree. And so in this workflow using agents, marketing ops has Glean pull both quantitative performance, which would be like the registrants, the downloads, website visits, all that kind of stuff, with any kind of qualitative feedback, that's possible. And Glean can even generate a shareable interactive page with results and learnings in just a few minutes, so that you now have a dashboard that you can be sending to leadership or to sales or reviewing as the marketing team as well. My team works with companies for, I think it's been 15 years now, coming up with go-to-market campaigns strategy and then executing that strategy in an omni-channel, multi-funnel world. And I can tell you that regardless of the size and the complexity of these campaigns, they're going to probably take weeks or months to execute. And so, I'm always a huge fan of just trying to get things out faster while also protecting quality. And so any ways that we can always find, any opportunities that we can find in making any of this process more efficient and allowing us to launch faster is going to be critical to being able for us and our client hit the goal, whether it's the lead goal, MQL goal, pipeline goal, revenue goal. So this is, hopefully a good view in terms of like what an end-to-end workflow can look like and how potential agents could be used as a way to speed up this weeks to months timeline into something that's much shorter. So I'm going to take a quick breath and I'm going to share my screen in a different way because I actually want to show you how some of these agents can be built. Because I think, certainly I can talk about it, but it's significantly more fun if I get to show you. So I just want to make sure that y'all can see Glean. Okay, great. So what's very cool about Glean, as Wace has said, is that it's your coworker for getting work done. And so the nice thing about Glean is actually built in as a browser. So every time I add a tab into one of my windows, it automatically defaults into Glean. And I want to just highlight 3 main features of Glean very quickly, and then I can start showing you some of the builds. But what you can kind of see here is just this box, and I can type anything I want in it. This is the AI assistant, and basically I can, create a prompt or ask it to do something for me, and it'll either help me go find something or start doing work for me. And so that is super useful and very, very helpful. I end up using the AI assistant as well as my team multiple times a day in order to get our work done. The search component of Glean is a little bit unique from what other enterprise search tools that are out there are. What's so great about Glean is how you can actually connect all your systems to Glean so that you only have to use Glean to search everything. We've got Google, we're a Google shop. So like we're constantly trying to find things in Google Drive. But then if I want to go try to search for something else, I got to go in that tool and find it. So regardless of whether you got Drive or SharePoint or Teams or any of the other tools that you may have in marketing, if you get it all connected to Glean and build as big and as deep of a knowledge graph as you can, then that context is going to be wide and deep. And so the search capabilities of Glean will really give you the ability to be able to find what you're looking for, thus saving you a lot more time and becoming a lot more productive. All right, so that's thing 2. Thing 3 is the ability to actually build agents within Glean. And this is super cool because this is a list of some of the agents that we've already built, but you can also build lists in Glean as well. And one of the agents that I actually want to show you is that product launch intelligence agent that we have in the slide that I just kind of walked you through. So I'll do the actual build in just a second, but I do actually want to show you the setup of this so you can kind of see some of the sausage, how the sausage was made. So in the middle of this screen is a PRD that we built because this is somewhat of a complex agent. To provide really in-depth instructions for how we want this agent to operate. And so you can see here that we have the tone and length, the content boundaries, a lot of direction in terms of what we want for the workflow. There's context synthesis. There's Asana tasks that are due this week. There's a whole bunch of output generation instructions that we want to provide. There's even formatting rules, edge case handling. And this is all really important because, again, if everything is connected to Glean and you can now pull all this context, then you can now really be able to analyze a bunch of stuff all at the same time. And so if I actually go back into the agent and I actually say that I want to launch a campaign for Private Track, which is just kind of like a fake launch thing that we came up with, you can see that it's doing the thinking and doing the building. It's outlining the tools and workflow for the Private Track search. And this will take like a second. So just kind of in the interest of time, I went ahead and ran this so that you can actually see what it looks like when you finally get the output. But you can see that there's a bunch of core documents that Glean was able to find. And this is now the intelligence brief that it's now come up with. And so you've now got your TLDR of what it is and the business objectives and the launch timing and window and even the launch data summary and some key takeaways that we all need to really be mindful of as we're thinking about wanting to do this launch. It even has things like asset and channel readiness, which is going to be really important for a lot of the different members of the team who are getting involved. Risks and recommended actions that we want to be mindful of. It also sources everything that it pulls from. So you can see that it's pulled from an AI launch brief, sales and audience feedback, client sound bites, a workbooks. Even we have a whole Slack thread that it's pulling from. And I've actually pulled a bunch of that stuff up here just so like this stuff is actually real. So like here's the Asana board that has everything that we want to do for the private track launch. Here's the AI launch brief that we initially wrote as we were coming up with the concept. Here's a whole list of client sound bites that we were able to pull from. We use Firefly, so we can tell it to go pull from a bunch of different Fireflies transcripts. If you have Gong or some other type of call logging tool, you could have Glean go pull me sound bites from a whole bunch of different logs. And so again, the concept here is that it's able to pull from just like a ton of stuff in order to create this type of output. And it's even saying like these are the Asana tasks that are due this week that need to get done. So not only is this strategic, but it's also like getting to be super tactical, where now everybody can divide and conquer and go get their stuff done. So that's the 360-degree launch agent. The second thing I wanted to highlight from that slide was the scheduling of the meeting, which I just think this is the coolest thing. So I have, again, just to kind of in the interest of time, gone ahead into the AI assistant, and I've just said, I want you to find some time for me and some of my colleagues to discuss the launch. And so, today's towards the end of the week, and I want to meet with my team on Monday. And so because it is connected to all these different tools and it has all this context, it was able to find a few workable Monday options for all the different stakeholders to meet. And it actually gave me a couple of different times of when I would actually like to meet with my team. And so I ended up picking this time, 10 o'clock in the morning on Monday, and it's actually asked me if I want to open it up on my calendar. And it actually did just go ahead and add it to my actual calendar. And so here's the launch discussion from the prompt for 10 a.m. on Monday. I'm based in Austin, Texas, so this is Central Time. But like, I just think this is so cool that you can, again, take all of this context and leverage this to really speed up and streamline your workflow. So that's the second call out from that slide. The third call out, which was communicating with sales, we've actually built another agent where it's taking all of this context around the launch campaign and creating an automated process to communicate to sales on whatever's going on. And so the way that this agent operates is that I can kind of self-select. I can type whatever I want in case I wanted to do something, but I can also start with like a sales summary for Private Track AI. And what this is actually, so that's kind of actually what I did. Give me a sales summary for the Private Track AI launch. And so now I've been able to create a document that I can now pass on to sales. So if me or the team has been asked to join a sales call, then we can walk everybody on sales through what's going to go on with the product launch. What are the key proof points? What are some of the likely objections that sales may have to face when they're engaging with prospects or clients? What's the suggested sales motion? What are even the suggested next steps? And so again, this is another way to really save time and streamline this workflow from something that's going to take a minute to grab all of this and then be able to work with sales and collaborate with sales into doing something much faster. All right, last cool feature from that whole workflow that I want to call out is all the reporting. So I want to show you very quickly that this is just a spreadsheet with a ton of data. This has the daily performance. This is channel summary. This is some feedback stuff. So there's a lot of stuff in this spreadsheet. This is the sales and audience feedback that we're getting. This is a document that's got post-launch learnings that we've been able to draft. And now let's just say again, per the slide, that the ask is, all right, what do I do with all this stuff? How am I going to communicate this to my manager, my VP, my CMO, to the executive team? Like, how do I now synthesize all this data into something that I can now share in the right way? So again, what's super cool here is that you can just take this prompt and say, take the results from the campaign and build me an executive dashboard that I can now review with my leadership team. And it now spits out an HTML landing page with all the data and insights that come from all the context that it's now been given because it's connected to all these tools. So you can see a lot of the data from that spreadsheet are showing up here. There's a ton of leadership insights of things of what worked, what needs to be tightened up, what are some of the strategic gaps, some executive takeaways, some best next moves. And so now, for us, as we're working with folks, we're now able to, save a whole lot of time of having to not have to make so many presentations because, again, I can just put in a prompt and get an HTML landing page that's pretty dynamic with, the way that it can be presented and displayed to, now being able to launch these types of end-to-end campaigns much faster. So I hope I wanted to be mindful of time, but I hope that these kind of walkthroughs with how Glean is capable of what Glean is capable of has been helpful to you. So give me one more second. I'm gonna go back to the slides. Let me find my slides here. All right. So now that we've gone through kind of what's possible and made that super actionable, I do just kind of want to slow this down just a little bit and think about how to make everything that Wace and I have shared today actionable over the next couple of months. Because as Wace has said, we have no doubt that you have a million things that you've already signed up for or have to sign up for with your own jobs and responsibilities that you got to get done. And this is yet another thing that you have to add to the list and got to do right. So I'm going to just outline over the next couple of slides what you should do over the next 90 days in order to really get a program going and to start to build muscle around some of this work. So the first 30 days should really be about getting the foundation right, because that's what determines whether this becomes a real operating advantage for you and your marketing team and not just some side project that somebody's working on. So as you think about the first 30-day window, the goal is not to build a bunch of random or disparate agents. We've seen a lot of that. The goal is actually to get super laser focused. And my recommendation is to pick just one workflow that already has real friction in it, and that can also help one or more people on your marketing team. And the ideas that I shared earlier are a great place to start, but definitely pick something else if you've got a better idea that can get you a quick one. And then define the business goals up front once you've picked out whatever that workflow is. Some things to potentially consider. Are we trying to move faster? Are we trying to increase output? Are we trying to improve alignment? Are we trying to get better visibility into pipeline? Or is it all of the above? Because if you actually don't define the success first, you're just going to end up with a bunch of activity instead of getting actual impact, which is obviously really important. From there, it's important to connect the minimum viable context. So your document, the CRM, your calls, Slack messages, any of the prior campaign data, any of the reporting, get all that into a system so that you can really get solid context. And then clarify the owners, the handoffs, the approvals, and where human in the loop needs to be implemented. And then, and really only then, just pick 2 or 3 moments in that workflow that you think an agent will be able to smooth out, instead of adding more complexity. And if you're able to do that, then that's what I think like a smart first 30 days looks like, because that is realistic with all the other things that we have going on with our day in marketing. Now, once you get into month 2, this is where you're going to want to measure meaningful KPIs, because you've got the workflow defined, you've got some agents now in the wild. And so are we improving cycle times? Are we increasing asset throughput while also maintaining quality? Are we driving adoption across the team? And ultimately, which is probably the most important, are we contributing to generating more quality leads in pipeline and revenue? Because that's how we get more budgets and more people to help us out. And this is also the stage where you should probably consider having like a weekly operating review. And I would recommend establishing a marketing AI tiger team who will be responsible for helping you, move this forward. And in that meeting, talk about what's breaking and not working. Talk about how to tighten prompts, improving handoffs across all the different stakeholders in your workflow. And just as important, also keep an eye on token usage and overall consumption, so you're not accidentally blowing any budget that you've gotten approvals for while you're scaling usage. And we're seeing that part happening a lot right now, and I'm sure you're hearing a lot of this in the news. Folks are just getting super into drilling down into Claude or Codex or Gemini, and then they've blown their entire budget for the year or the quarter, whatnot, super quickly. And this is actually another shameless plug for Glean, because this is a spot where Glean can help. Glean does have features that will help you better manage token usage, because it is LLM agnostic and does connect with all LLMs. So you want these workflows to be effective, but you also want them to be efficient, sustainable, and help you actually manage your work within the budgets that you've gotten approved. Okay. Now we're into month 3. The question's really going to become, did this create value, and is this worth scaling? And so this is really where you want to quantify the impact. What did it do for the KPIs that I and the team are trying to set out to achieve? And is it helping me generate more leads, pipeline, and revenue? Because if you can't show that value clearly, it's just going to be very hard to turn any of this early momentum into something that's going to stick for the long term. This is also the point where you have the opportunity to tighten the workflow into something that is repeatable. And I encourage you to put governance around it, add QA checkpoints, get really clear and hone in on your source of truth rules, so that you and the team know, what's the data and content that the current workflow should trust, and then just be disciplined about your expansion. Instead of jumping into 10 new workflows, expand into the next 1 or 2 workflows that matter most to you and the team, or to marketing leadership, or ELT. And then at the end of this 90-day phase, come out with an executive readout that actually makes this business case clear. Here's what we improved, here's what we learned, here's what worked, here's what didn't work so well, and here's what we're going to go next. And if you can do all of this in the next 90 days, then I promise you, you are well on your way to having you and your marketing team becoming more productive with your work with agents. So thank you for staying with me on this, and I'm now going to pass it back off to Weisa, who's going to share a few of the learnings that she's had about her experience following this process internally at Glean.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Really excited to see all of those demos. Really kind of reflects kind of what we're doing with our AI agents as well. So, obviously at Glean, we're using our own product a ton, and there's ways that we've thought about transforming our marketing team into an AI first organization. So like Ben said, wanted to share some learnings from our own AI for Marketing Tiger team that I've been leading at Glean, to kind of show you how we're embracing AI in our day to day. So first, as you're thinking of, going through the first 30 days of this project plan that we've outlined, we found that a really easy place to start is kind of thinking through and going through existing workflows and processes that can actually just be fully taken off of your plate with automation or with an agent. These are, hopefully can create some really quick wins and momentums for showcasing the value of AI and incorporating the workflows into things that you're actually doing. So for example, a process that we've done after every single webinar, probably including this one, is we'll pull together, the same reports, registrants, attendees, feedback, things like that, and do a post-event analysis. So we thought, instead of us spending, an hour or two recapping that event, we can kind of push that info gathering and data gathering to an agent to comb through, our Salesforce campaigns, the webinar chat transcripts, the campaign briefs, to give, this agent the context that it needs to understand what was being presented, to put that into a post-event recap. So now, instead of spending our time pulling that data together, we're able to actually use that to focus on the insights on how we incorporate feedback, improve for the next webinar, and things like that. Next, as you're going into your build phase, fortunately or unfortunately, we found that, we really need to approach this part of the process with attention to your data and process foundation. Looking through all different types of data, structured and unstructured. And what do I mean by that is, structured data like your marketing automation data, your CRM data, and then unstructured data like where are your team documents and how are your team files and outputs organized? Do you have processes for certain things and are they documented anywhere? Using that time, when you're building that agent to parallel process documenting some of those processes and instructions for what you're giving your agent is super key because, while you're documenting, you're also giving your agent the additional business context it needs to execute your task better. And, like we've been saying this whole webinar, your agent output is only going to be as good as the data and the instructions and the content it has access to. So take that time to really make that happen. And then last, keep in mind that AI products and LLMs evolve almost as quickly as some of, our internal processes change. So we're, obviously constantly asking ourselves, how do we take our work to the next level and how do we take these outputs to the next level by leveraging the improvements that our AI coworker has made over, the last couple of months or years. Where can we think about delegating work, not just, generating ideas, outputs, and things like that. So another example I'll share, when we were thinking through, this was probably about a year ago, we wanted to automate our field event, Know Before You Go slide deck creation. And about a year ago, there wasn't quite a slide generation capability yet. And so we were actually generating, text outlines for them to copy paste into a slide deck. And now fast forward a year, Glean is now able to both create sales slide decks and HTML artifacts as the end output. So now we're able to end-to-end generate, the Know Before You Go content, all of the things that the expectations of on-site reps and team members, and actually put that into a slide format or an HTML template artifact for the team to share. So actually going back and revisiting some of the agents that we've already created to incorporate those advances in the platform. So making sure that you're taking time to think through how that would work. Cool. I'll pass it back to Ben one more time.
Awesome. So hopefully this session has been interesting to you. And again, we really appreciate you showing up and listening to us. We know there's a ton of hype around these types of topics, but we wanted to end just kind of with this slide because these are real potential outcomes that us and Glean, we're a partner of Glean's, have seen. So, saving 10 hours per marketer per month, is a pretty awesome KPI. And so, you have a 10-person team or even larger, you could be saving roughly 300 hours per quarter that's being redirected to higher value work. And in an environment where us marketers are being asked to constantly do more with less, especially right now in this environment, the economics become really strong if you adopt this concept of generating context with a centralized brain and then building end-to-end workflows with agents. So thank you so much for being with us today, and I'll now pass it off to Bree for any questions that anybody may have.
All right, thank you both for that ton of information. We do have some questions. Just a quick reminder, if you have those questions, there's still time to put them in the Q&A. There are some in there, so if you want to upvote the ones that are your favorite, those are the ones we're going to start with. You guys ready?
Ready.
All right. So the first one here, how do you balance automation with human review so the workflow moves faster without losing quality or judgment?
You want to take that first, or you want me to stab it?
Go ahead, Ben.
I think this is a learning process, and it really depends on the use case that you're speaking of. Because in some use cases, you really, the need for human review is a lot less than for others. That said, I will say that in almost everything that we're still doing, especially in these early phases of getting programs going, we always have human review at the end. There's always a QA that's manual. Even though you can automate some of that QA, we still have humans doing final reviews and final checks before anything is pushed publicly or internally. So again, case by case basis, but definitely if you're going to do human review in anywhere right now, still do it in QA.
100% agree. I think there are instances where, maybe we're a little bit more comfortable pushing out something directly to end stakeholders. Like maybe it's just a simple report or, a simple summary of the metrics that, the margin of error is a little bit lower that we can push directly to stakeholders. But where, we want to keep that quality bar high, like, reviewing a first draft of content or something like that. That's where we want to, focus our team's time. And, as you think about the different trade-offs and as you think about where your project sits on that spectrum, hopefully you're freeing up a lot of your time to be able to be that human in the loop.
Great. All right. Does the agent call out when there is a data hygiene issue when gathering performance data, or call out when it needs more information so it doesn't default to hallucinating?
I can take this one from a Glean platform perspective. So the great thing about Glean is that it will cite sources for every single kind of like line item or piece of information that it's bringing forth. And if you had noticed in the agent outputs, there were kind of little numbers after every paragraph or after every sentence or bullet point. That's actually calling back to the source document that the agent is using to generate that output. So if I'm reading it and I'm just, reading the output and I kind of understand where things should be coming from or understand the context, maybe I can do a quick read through. If I don't know what the context is or I need a little bit more information or to verify, I can always hover over that citation and it'll point me back directly to the source document, which is a really cool feature that I leverage a lot as well. I believe there are also cases where you can, prompt your agent. I think in one of the examples that Ben was showing to pull out like a how confident are you in this answer type of analysis, and that's another way that you can do that as well.
And the only thing I'll add is like you're only as good as your data quality, and so there is a lot of work that we're doing with clients to just improve data hygiene because there's a lot of missing data, or the data isn't accurate, or it's stale, or it needs to be deprecated or archived, or it doesn't have the full context, it only got a certain piece of it. And so there is a foundational amount of work that needs to be done in concert with doing the agent building to ensure that you are, getting the biggest bang for your buck. But us marketers have always had data hygiene issues. I don't know anybody that's ever, knocked it out of the park, but that light is being shined on, data hygiene even more brightly than it ever has before, because this is what everything is, going to be operating off of.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about then.
Being honest.
Yeah. Okay, so this might be a two-parter. I'll read the whole thing, and then if you guys need me to repeat the second part, I will. So how does Glean help orchestrate outcomes based on ICP internal signals versus designing and executing on campaigns driven by MQLs and CRM data? And then how does Glean prioritize convertible opportunities versus speeding up task execution or creating efficiencies?
You want
Let
me
me
to
know
take
if
a
you want me
stab?
to reread anything.
I think a lot of it is the simplest answer, because there's a lot of nuance in there.
Mhm.
The simplest answer is really how you prompt, because if you want Glean to do something in a specific way, then you want to tell it to do it in that way. And so that's actually, what's exciting about it, because you can slice and dice in a few different ways to kind of compare and contrast different outputs. And so I think the flexibility is really a value add in being able to decide how you want to ultimately do something. If we're doing something that's very persona specific, that's the framing that we're going to build the agent around, or the prompt, using AI assistant or something like that, versus something that's more product focused, that may be, an enterprise wide launch and not just to a specific persona. So, again, having that flexibility with AI assistant and with any kind of agent build out is really valuable as you decide kind of what's the right way to slice it, because each different scenario makes a lot of sense in different use cases. Hopefully we answered the whole question there.
Yeah, Waysa, do you have anything you want to add, or are we good on that one?
I would just echo Ben's sentiment around the flexibility. So, we, for example, our product marketing team is split between folks that work on our platform and then folks that work more on solutions marketing. So these are like persona based or industry based. The way that they want to, look at our marketing performance data is going to be a little bit different. But because we're all operating on the same data foundation, they can, like we said, slice and dice the data the way that they need to. And sometimes we're looking at it as a cross section of the two of them. And so that's I think where the power of being able to work across the same data foundation is really important.
Okay, great. So Glean looks great, but my company is strict on just using Copilot. Can I do similar builds of agents on Copilot, and/or how can I convince my company to adopt Glean?
I'm happy to take this one, and then Waste, if you want to jump in. So short answer is yes, you can do this on just using Copilot. I will say to the extent that Copilot can connect with all of your tools is going to be the limiting factor to how much context you can actually build and develop to then build your agents. But short answer is yes. I will say, because we do have experience with Copilot as well, and we have clients that only have had their IT and security teams approve Copilot because of the offering that Microsoft has made for it, is that it's just hard to use. And I will also say that its actual core search functionality is not as strong as Glean. The core search functionality of Copilot is actually coming from Microsoft Bing Search. And Glean's founder and CEO is one of the original developers of the Google search engine. And I can just kind of tell you that from my own experience, and I think there's even some papers that have been done that have been drafted from Glean, that the actual core search experience is like significantly stronger than just the core search experience of Copilot. And there are a lot of companies that originally had said, I can't use Glean or other tools because my business has told me that I have to use Copilot. And then 18 months, 24 months later, now there's no pilots out there. No one has figured out how to use Copilot, and everybody's in the same place and within their own business. And then unfortunately behind everybody else that got more aggressive about making a transition to something that was more malleable and made more sense. So I think this was Samantha who asked the question, like, happy to chat with you offline about how you can kind of enable yourself and other members of your team to talk to leadership about how to adopt Glean, because there's definitely a talk track there to where you can make a really strong business case for why that makes sense. Waisa, anything to add there?
I won't add too much because I feel like my opinion here will be a little bit biased. The thing that I'll add is, you can, like Ben said, obviously give it a try. And, I think that actually ends up making it a stronger business case that you've tried to build something, you have decided that it's something that you really need as part of your workflow. It's very integral to, your end-to-end workflow day to day. But it's, not possible or not complete or whatever it is with the tools that you have. And so investing in something like Glean would be really important for you.
Great. Allison is asking, are the source docs created by Glean or are those delivered by the product marketing or relevant team and then used by agents?
I'm happy to take this. Depends. It's totally up to you. If there's already stuff that you want to draft and create on your own and you want to leverage that in terms of how the context is created, by all means, go for it. If you are crunched for time because you need to pull from a bunch of different sources and you want to leverage Glean to be able to create source documentation for you, you can also do that as well. I will actually highly vouch for that. I think that's kind of like a hack, is like we've created a lot of documentation that through Glean that's really allowed us to kind of get 95% of the way there. And then we, just tweak it and get it into a really good place. And a lot of those documents can now be foundational in nature because Glean can then go search for it, find it, and then use it in agent building or any of the work that you're asking it to do with AI assistance. So that actually cuts a ton of steps out of the process when you're trying to build campaigns, do anything related to product marketing, whether it's battle cards or customer research or positioning exercises, customer journey exercises, any of that kind of stuff. So I know that was a little long-winded, but hopefully that answers the question.
And the thing that I'll add is thinking about thinking about your use case in particular. Do you need to be going to the source material? So do you need your agent to be going through your Gong calls or your meeting transcripts or Salesforce data or anything like that? Or are you looking for it to surface a type of answer that needs to be public facing? It needs to be all of these different criteria. One example is, I created an agent to answer our company and our go-to-market team questions about our user conference that's at the end of August. And, the team could put their question into Glean, or they could ask it in a Slack channel, and Glean would probably be able to give them a pretty good answer. The experience that I want to curate for that use case in particular, though, is I want to make sure that all of the examples that they're given or all of the sessions that they're referencing, whatever, are public facing and all of the information is the most up-to-date version. And so I may want to curate that experience down to a certain set of documents that the agent operates off of, or a certain Slack channel where updates are being posted and things like that, instead of having Glean go through everything that it ever has seen from my company every single time someone answers or asks the question.
Okay, great. I think we probably have time for one more. Maybe we can squeeze in two, but we'll start with this one. For the leadership dashboard example, in addition to context and connection to existing content or systems, are you also training it on particular skills related to how you measure performance?
Yes. And that is something that's actually really cool that you can do within Glean, is create skills within Glean like you can create skills with any of the other LLMs that are available. And that also helps speed up the process because you now have skills to orient yourself around when you're building out agents and workflows and the like.
Great. I'll throw this one out really quick. It might be one you guys want to follow up on, but why Glean over Claude?
Instead of why Glean over Claude, Glean and Claude. Glean is not an LLM. Glean's an enterprise search tool. So and it's LLM agnostic and connected to all LLMs. So you can be using Claude in Glean, or you could be using Codex, or you could be using, Gemini or Kimi or anything, whatever LLM you got the hots for, you can use it in Glean. So I think that's actually why Glean is so well positioned. Just, again, we are partners, so let's be clear here. But like from my own view, OpenAI was the LLM leader in the first inning. Anthropic is kind of the hot LLM right now. Cursor could be in a couple of months. All these LLMs are releasing new capabilities and becoming more powerful every couple of days, couple of weeks. And so to go ahead and pick a winner, in my view, when it's so early in the game, is actually a very risky proposition. You want to be agnostic, not only because of kind of what the functionality of these different LLMs can do, but also the costs as well. Like everybody's defaulting to using the latest model, and that's why a lot of these budgets are just getting busted, when in reality you could be using other models that are significantly more cost effective for more streamlined and simplistic work, and then use the latest models for the heavier, more complex thinking and outcomes. So Glean and Claude and every other LLM.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's a perfect way to end, I think. Thank you again, Ben and Wesa, for an amazing presentation, this great Q&A section. And again, thanks to Interrupt Agents and Glean for sponsoring today's session. We truly value your feedback, so please click the link that just popped up on your screen. It's also posted in the chat to fill out a short survey to share your thoughts on this session. Thanks again for being here, for joining us today. We can't wait to see you at our next Marketing Profs event.
Thanks, everybody.